All right, well, we are going to start session number 29 of the Last Days series here. And we're going to be covering the end of chapter 13, and then we're going to be covering quite a bit of 14, but I decided to cut off the very end of it because I don't want to quite get to some detail there. All right, so with that, this is session number 29. I put 28 on there. I do that a lot, but the title on your notes is correct. This is session number 29. And we're talking about the mark of the beast. That's the title of this. And what we're going to see is, I think, a contrast. All right, because at the end of chapter 13, we have the mark of the beast. And then when we get to chapter 14, just as the beast has his sealed with their mark, we're going to see the result for God's people who are sealed with his mark. So we're going to see an interesting parallel there. And we're actually over halfway through Revelation now. We're going through it very fast. Obviously, if we were doing it verse by verse, we'd be in Revelation a long time. But the point is, by the time it's all said and done, you should have a decent idea of like what's going on in any given place in Revelation. So what you're going to see today is, remember how we've been jumping around in time? Like sometimes I'll say, hey, this is at the end of the tribulation. Now we're going back. Well, we've been going back, and we're going to be still back a little bit at the end of chapter 13, and then get ready for 14, because as your notes say, we're going to take a look ahead, all right?
Why do you write it like that, then, if it's like jumping back and forth?
My conclusion is, and it's a really good question, there's a lot of speculation. My conclusion is John is telling us exactly the order of things that he receives. Like he is just writing the revelation down in the order that it's given to him. Now, maybe John had some leeway. Maybe he thought, wow, Revelation chapter 13 is a real get-you-downer, so let me like insert something victorious and exciting about the end for Revelation 14. That's just mostly speculation. But yeah, Revelation is definitely a book where you're jumping back and forth, I think. All right, so let's go ahead and look here at the mark of the beast. Okay, very famous symbol there. You know, I almost was like, should I actually put the number 666 up on the screen? Because, like, you know, there's kind of like a weird, like, you know, aura about that. But I did like a bunch of Christian research, and it seems like all the Christian websites will just go ahead and type it out. So I thought, yeah, it's fine. I'll go ahead and do it. But the mark of the beast, it still felt weird, though. So with that, let's go ahead and look at the passage of Scripture here. Starting in verse 16, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark on their right hand or in their foreheads. Now, this is the second beast, okay? This is the second one that comes up out of the sea. We're going to refer to him later as the false prophet of the Antichrist. So there's the Antichrist, there's the false prophet of the Antichrist. Remember, we also have the dragon, who is Satan himself. So I'm still kind of proposing to you this format of Satan copying God. We've got this unholy trinity going on here, okay? And this is going to be the famous passage. Everybody knows it. I mean, in all secular culture even, if you said, you know, hey, it's the mark of the what? You know, and they all know, they're going to say it's the mark of the beast, because it's just that popular and well known.
Remind me what the beast looks like.
So the beast is described as, to save a little bit of time, it's essentially, he's described as a conglomeration of all of the beasts seen in Daniel's prophecy. You've got the leopard, you've got the bear, and then you also have the, a lion. So it's really kind of, I think, what John is saying is, hey, this beast is, kind of quote Lord of the Rings, like the one kingdom to rule them all, right? Like over all the empires that had gone before it. So it's a combination of Babylon, it's a combination of Greece, it's a combination of Persia, and Rome, or is the beast kind of a revival of Rome? That's an interesting thing as well. That
it's so weird to fathom in the world that there's this beast thing that looks like this that's going to be on the earth.
Is this
right?
Is this one of those that you still take it literally, or is this a metaphor?
I do take because Daniel uses the beasts in his prophecy to depict nations. I'm going to tie the beast's imagery more so just saying, hey, remember how before you had the empire of Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome? This one is going to be a combination of all those empires. So, now with that being said, one of the interesting things about archaeology is Babylon was tied to a lion, if you'll recall, and they found the ruins of Babylon, symbols of lions. So there maybe is kind of a dual thing there, where yes, it's really a figurative way to describe all these empires, but who knows what kind of imagery that may be used in the empire. I mean, the United States, what we picture, right? Bald eagle, America, right? So there could be imagery there, all the same. So I'll remind you, this is already after, if we go back up and read some of these previous verses, it's not like he just arrives on the scene and just says, hey, everybody, you have to take the mark. Remember, all this stuff happens. The second beast comes, he exercises the power, he causes all the earth to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. Remember, just like copying the crucifixion of Christ, he's mimicking in that way as well. And he doeth great wonders so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. I mean, he's doing all the things. He's doing all the miraculous signs, the wonders for people, deceives them that are on the earth by those miracles, to worship the first beast. There's this image that everyone is instructed to make, at least the way I understand it, that they're instructed to make an image to the beast. They bow down and worship the beast. He gives this image of the beast the ability to speak and whatnot. So all of this has been going on. Keep this in the forefront of your mind. So any of those who had refused to worship the beast up to this point were killed. Okay? And now, just remember, just as we read God sealing the 144,000, Satan's going to continue to copy God in this way. He is going to have his own sealed. So just as the 144,000 received the name of the Lord, the mark of the Lord on their foreheads, guess what? Now the beast is going to seal his people, those that are allegiant to him, those that are worshiping him. So they are going to take a mark on their in their right hand or in their forehead. That is interesting how it's worded there. In their right hand, in their forehead. We'll talk a little bit about the mark here in just a minute because everybody speculates, you know. But give me just a minute and we'll get there.
People that didn't take the mark or didn't worship the beast and died, are they going to heaven?
Yes, or well, yes, the martyrs, the souls under the altar, they will enter the kingdom, and we'll actually get to them in the next chapter. So to parallel, so those. No, you're fine. You're fine. No, that's okay.
I don't want to frustrate you. And then this is after the rapture, correct?
This is all after the rapture. Yes, that's fine. No, Revelation, it's kind of like a mud puddle. Once you get to stomping around in it, it gets really cloudy. So anytime you need to like have a reminder, like let it all settle and get clear again.
So, okay, so after the rapture, after all the Christians are gone,
Yes.
so there still are people that believe that weren't taken because
They
now
didn't believe at the time.
They will start to realize, and most of these people will
and
be
God won't take them.
right because they miss the window of the grace we live in now, this age. Because once this opportunity is removed, now you have to endure. Now you've got to persevere into the end. That was the original, like in our sermons we've been doing on Sunday mornings, the whole point of the new covenant is in order to receive it, you first have to go through tribulation. And since our dispensation is not a part of the new covenant, enduring the tribulation is not for us, okay? So with that, yeah, there's going to be people who will be not bowing down to the beast, and they will be, they should be killed. The decree is, if you do not worship the beast, you should be killed. Remember, for example, like Nebuchadnezzar and Daniel in the lion's den, and how he was supposed to, what was the instruction? He had to, was it pray to? Because it was Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego who were told to bow down to the statue, correct?
What's your question? No, they
Maybe-
can Mark, what's your question? I just read it to Jake like last week.
Was it what did Nebuchadnezzar require the people to do?
Are you saying why did he get thrown into the
Why did he get?
It was like nobody within 30 days was allowed to pray to God.
That was it, right? So it's kind of the idea, you know, similar picture there, like you must do this or you will be killed, right? So moving on here, let's before we start speculating about the mark, let's get into the reason for it. So not only does the mark show allegiance, like, hey, I'm with the Antichrist, I'm with the beast, but furthermore, it actually serves an economical purpose. So the reason of the mark is that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Now, when I read, and I looked in the Greek a little bit, this matter of or the name, or the number, I do think I read these as the same, like these are in the same category with each other. They kind of all work together. So first of all, I want to make note. All the world's already seen the miracles. They've already seen the wonders. People have already been killed because they refused to bow down. And I would say that to a degree, they will not be forced to worship the beast. I think they will do so willfully. I think they will do so even joyfully. Because remember, we've had wars, we've had earthquakes, we've had famine, and guess who comes to bring justice and, well, they think justice, order to the earth? The Antichrist. He's going to bring an end to war. He's going to say, look, we have food. We have the means for you to survive. All you've got to do is worship me and take the mark. And I think that the vast majority of the world will do so excited about it. They will do so willingly. He's their conquering hero. And he's going to look the part. He's going to act the part. And that for those that do have some reservations, either they'll fall into the category of the martyrs who lose their life, or they will be persuaded by fear, by intimidation. Okay?
Feed their family.
Exactly. Fear their family will starve, their family will die.
And
Exactly.
you may not mind, but I mean, what about your children?
Exactly. And this is going to tie into, remember Jesus' instruction in Matthew 7, 13, and 14. I think this is one of the misunderstood passages because it's always applied to like our gospel, our salvation. But if we look at what Jesus actually says here in Matthew 7, 13 and 14, he says, "Enter ye at the strait gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it." And then what do you go right into in verse 15? "Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You'll know them by their fruit." So I think this instruction here is much more than just, hey, be a Christian. Few people are Christians. Few people believe the gospel. I mean, while it's true as probably an actual ratio, I don't know it's as rare as what we're saying. I mean, besides, if you looked at the majority of the United States would say, yeah, I'm a Christian to some degree, right? And then I would say a number of those people are saved. They believe that they're saved by Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. I think this is much more saying the straight gate is you do not love your life to the death. Or yes, you do not love your life to the death. You're willing to be killed for the sake of not worshiping the Antichrist. Even though it may mean you starve, it may mean that your family starves, you will not bow down and worship the beast. Okay? I think that's really the heart of the matter. And guess what? Many people will enter through the broad gate because, first of all, they think this guy is their Savior. They think that he is the one that's come to save the world. And then also, they will be able to buy and sell and have access to the economy that the Antichrist will have set up here. That's right. Right, exactly. Yeah. Reading Revelation will make you a prepper, and you will be, you're like, I'm going to get rid of all my credit cards. So that no man might buy or sell that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his image. So either a person can take the mark, live and operate in the beast's empire, or essentially they can refuse and be faced with a sentence to death, right? So either you are on the run or they've already caught you and you're living as a mountain man trying to survive, right? So, some places in the United States and other areas may do okay, right? But you will not be you'll not be a rich man. Think about that. When Jesus told the rich young ruler that it's easier for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven, once again, I think that there's a number of people who are very wealthy who are saved today. I think what he's saying is when the day comes and you must take the mark or be cut off from the economy, you cannot buy, you cannot sell, all your stocks, all your trade will mean nothing. And the only way that you remain a wealthy man in the days of the tribulation is by pledging allegiance to the Antichrist, taking his mark. There's some who try to claim, well, the eye of a needle just means like a narrow gate you got to get the camel through. They're trying to make it about our gospel, and they know it doesn't play well if you say no rich person can enter heaven. So what they do is they spiritualize it. They try to play with the words. I take it literally. A camel is not going to make it through the eye of a needle, right? I mean, unless you cut the camel into really small pieces, I guess. That'd be a long time, though. So no, that's...
So this is all happening worldwide.
Yes. Now, at this point, how much of the world is left, though, right? You know, if we've lost a quarter here, a third there, and who knows what the world population will be when that time comes. You know, we're thinking, well, it's 8 billion, 9 billion, maybe not. It could be.
Well, the rapture happens, so that's...
Right, so you're going to lose a few people there. But what if the world population is somehow less in the future than what it is now? I mean, that's what they're predicting in a lot of ways. Birth rates are down. People aren't getting married, having children. So yes, with that being said, we may not even be in the billions at this point. It may be in the hundreds of thousands. We really just don't know. But every man will be required to take the mark in order to engage in this economy here. And so you'll either pledge allegiance or face the threat of starvation, if not just being killed if you're caught. Verse 18 says here, come on in if you want to. Oh, okay. All right, yeah, here we are. Here is wisdom, verse 18. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast. This very much is a term of being able to discern. I don't know that that scared me there for a second. I don't know that we can look at it now and know for certain. I think this is one of those things that when you're in the day, you'll be able to discern what it's about. But count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. Now, that's an interesting statement, okay? It's the number of a man, it's tied to a man, and what is the number? His number is 600, 60, which is 60, and 6. So 666. Now, could it be literally that number? I don't have a problem with it. You know me, I'm going to take the Bible literally when I get the chance. With that being said, 6 is very much the number of man. What day was man created? The 6th day. How many days is a man to work according to the Old Testament law? 6 days. On the 7th day you rest. Other things, if you want to kind of reach a little bit, you know how many fingers and toes Goliath had and his brother? They had 6 fingers and 6 toes. There's just kind of a tie there of like man at his absolute worst, rejecting of God. So we could speculate a little bit. I think, once again, kind of the sentiment is, when you're in the moment, when it's that time, when it's that day, here is wisdom, let him that hath understanding count the number. You can put 2 and 2 together and see what it is. Once again, maybe it could be quite literal. Now, here's where some of the speculation comes in. The number is absolutely tied into the ability to buy or sell. Now, we could see how this could be done, without high levels of technology, right? You have your money, but you have to have, the bill, the slip that says, hey, I am approved, I've got the stamp, it's on my hand, it's on my forehead. We could picture a tattoo, a burn even, like a branding, something like that. But we do have technology nowadays that we could all picture it, right? I mean, I think Elon Musk does some cool stuff, but the whole Neuralink thing, I'm like, I don't know if I want that. But you could picture it, right? A chip in the hand, a chip in the forehead. There's a lot of speculation there, but I do take it to be whatever it is, whether it's related to technology or whatnot, it will be an actual thing you will have to have in your hand or in your forehead in order to be able to engage in the economy of the Antichrist. I think, right. I think maybe both, possibly. That maybe it's something in you, but also on you to where it can be seen. That's an interesting question.
My, I don't know, some of my family think that it'll be like a credit card, like inserted
Yes.
in your hand. Well, my daughter, is autistic, and they do implant tracking devices, and then
Yes.
because, they run off and all that stuff. And I don't know if they put them in their hand or whatever. But, I've been like, that's kind of,
Yeah.
it's kind of iffy.
Right. I will say, So first of all, for the mark of the beast, I don't think that it is going to be something that you and I will have to deal with in our time. There may be stuff that's very similar to it. I mean, before we had COVID, it was hard for me to picture the mark of the beast. But then like New York and places like that were like, okay, you've got to show me your shot record before you can go into the store and buy groceries. And I thought, wow, that happened fast. I mean, just like that. And of course, a lot of Christians were like, is the COVID shot the mark of the beast? And kind of wondering. I don't think it was being injected into the forehead, but who knows? It is easy to picture how quickly it could happen. And I think that considering everything the world has experienced up to this point, you have this guy coming in looking like the Savior, people will flock. They will be fighting to be the first in line to get it. Okay, yes. There's so many people that think, oh, I'll be able to recognize that when it comes. And if this whole, future Antichrist thing is true, I'll be able to see it. It's like, that's pretty arrogant because you're forgetting all the things that have come before, the catastrophe, the disasters. Truth be told, you're probably starving already by the time this comes. So you're all the more desperate for food. It's not a good day. And think about who would be the ones of all people who would be most likely to withstand the temptation and the deception. Only the people who are holding to the Old Testament law. Thou shalt not have any graven image. That alone, when they see the command, the instruction to make a graven image, a practicing Jew or somebody who has gotten with the program now that they realize what's going on, kind of like those you're referring to, they will look back and they will say, we were instructed not to do this. This has to be the beast. The rest of the world, though, they won't put those things together. And I will say Christianity, whether you want to point out Catholicism or what have you, it has gotten to a degree somewhat more comfortable with imagery, I would say, in a lot of ways. So just because you're a Christian doesn't mean that it's all going to be, or at least you hold to some view of Christianity, and maybe you're not quite trusting in faith alone, you're hoping works will get you by. You may not be out of the woods either for being deceived. So, some speculation there exactly what the mark is going to be. We could guess. There is an interesting thing, and I'm trying to decide if I want to try to tie it in or not. Remember the rather bizarre statement that Christ says, and we always take him figuratively like most preachers do. If thy right hand offend thee, cut it off. If thy eye offend thee, pluck it out. It is interesting to me that he addresses really he doesn't say anything about your foot. I mean, you could kick someone, why not cut your foot off? Or your tongue, right? Your tongue could offend you and you could cut your tongue out. But it is specifically the hand and the eye. I mean, are we going to try to read into it? Maybe he's saying, listen, maybe you discovered after the fact, anybody who has the mark's going to die. Cut that hand off. Pluck that eye out if it's maybe in the forehead, somehow in the eye. Anyways.
I could see them doing some kind of when you're going for cataracts or
Right. Well, everybody scans your eye, you've got your unique retinal pattern. All that being said, I'm not telling...
Lenses in your eyes now, don't they?
Yeah. I'm not saying to apply that verse in that way. I'm just saying... Anytime preachers always want to spiritualize things, I always try to find a way to take it literal, just almost to be rebellious. And so maybe I'm reaching a little bit. Don't take that as actual complete doctrine. But here's another interesting thing. Within Christianity, there is the view that, or at least some hold the view of preterist doctrine, that Revelation has already, or at least in part, been fulfilled. Well, there are some who say that the Antichrist already came in the form of maybe Nero. He died in 68 AD, and he was a very harsh persecutor of Christians. And so they will say, well, the beast was fulfilled in the person of Nero. And let's say that you're a Christian, or at least you hold to a Christian view, but your doctrine is not quite correct. You're counting on your baptism to save you. You're counting on, to a degree, partaking of the sacraments to save you. Well then, all of a sudden, here comes this guy who walks, talks, acts like he's the Messiah. He's the Savior. He is wounded. He is miraculously healed. There are prophets doing miraculous things, and you are amazed. And you're thinking, well, all the way back in 68 AD is when we had the Antichrist. So who are you looking for? You're looking for the second coming of Christ himself.
Right.
Wouldn't it be a shame if maybe many in Catholicism are deceived by this? Especially with, like we said, some of the iconography and the imagery that goes on in Catholicism. It's a possible world. So the preterist doctrine that all this has already been fulfilled could even lead to more people being deceived. Interesting to consider. Go ahead.
So the ones that are still the Jewish ones that are still.
Yes, the
At this
144,000.
time, would they believe that Jesus was the first Messiah then? Will they finally accept what happened? Because
I will say, so the sealed, I believe, yes. The sealed fully understand. I think they're going to know they're sealed. They're going to know the times they're in. They're going to know that their Messiah has already come. But there is also the remnant that is not the sealed. Those are just those that have to endure it, most likely to their death. I think that they will come to realize it as the time comes. They will be in keeping the law. Many of them will not be deceived. Many of them will not be fooled, and they will come to realize and put two and two together. A lot of that's speculation, but I do think so. I think a number of them will realize, yeah, we rejected our Messiah. And part of the whole tribulation is to get Israel to admit that their Messiah had already come, that they will look upon the one whom they pierced. And so I think that's accurate. So now let's go ahead and jump forward here to a look ahead. So we've gone from dark and gloom, the Antichrist sealing his own. Now we're going to jump to chapter 14, and whether this is the order that John sees it, and I do think that's probably it. I think John is getting the order of revelation here. But also, hey, we're getting a positive look ahead. So, and what you're going to see is a parallel. We just had the mark of the beast, if you will, the sealing of the Antichrist. Now let's see those who are sealed by God, okay? Now, very interesting what we're about to read here in verse 14. It says, "And I looked, and lo, a lamb," we already know who that is, that's been introduced to us, this is Christ, "stood on the Mount Sion." Zion is another way to pronounce it. This is, I believe, fully convinced, the first time in all of the Bible since the ascension that Christ is on earth. Okay? Now, I think we've had the rapture, but where do we meet Christ at the rapture? In the air, not on the earth itself. Mount Sion, you could go do a word search and study it. It is always Jerusalem. Okay? It is Jerusalem. It's the holy city, and not the heavenly one. It is on earth. Okay? Every time you see it, it's referring to that, and even Mount Zion almost carries a sense of governmental authority. So this is the picture, hey, he has come to reign. So finally, when you read in Acts, when he ascends into heaven, the next time he is on the earth, here he is, he's standing on Mount Zion. So this is obviously a jump ahead. We were at the midpoint in the tribulation in which the mark of the beast was being given. Now we're jumping ahead to see the victory of Christ. "And with him 144,000 having his Father's name written in their foreheads." So there's the parallel. You had those who were written with the beast, those who were sealed by the beast, those who worshiped the beast. Now here are those, the remnant of the 144,000 that are sealed, written with the Father's name in their foreheads. Once again, I don't know exactly what is it, the Hebrew name, Jehovah, Yahweh, is it something else? That's how I would probably take it. Verse 2, it says, "And I heard a voice from heaven as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of a great thunder, and I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps." Harpers harping with their harps. Pretty good, right? That's one of the things about the King James, is it's very much, it is almost like lyrical in its writing. It's much more than just a translation. It was selected and written to be something that sticks in your mind. That's why all your memory verses are almost always King James. You just don't realize it. We'd be a lot better, I think, at scripture memorization if we got back to just using the King James. "And they sung, as it were, a new song before the throne." So if you are familiar with the Revelation song, "Sing a new song to him that sits on heaven's mercy seat," it comes from this. "And before the four beasts and the elders, and no man could learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth." So clearly they know it. They know what this means. Maybe they have insight to the heavenly language. Maybe they're really the only ones that know Hebrew. I'm not sure. But they know it. They know the new name. They know the new song. And then verse 4, it says, "These are they which were not defiled with women." Now, these are describing specifically the 144,000, okay? They're not defiled with women. What do they mean by that? For they are virgins. Now, a man does not have to be... A man who marries one woman and does things in the order of God's will has not defiled himself with a woman. Marriage is a good thing. Remember, marriage was created on the sixth day of creation. We could speculate why it is that they needed to be virgins in order to not be defiled. Maybe, when we could speculate at this point, there's not a suitable Israelite wife for them. I mean, that's one speculation you could make. Or maybe this was a very specific calling given to them, which is very interesting when we consider something that Jesus said back in Matthew 19:12. Maybe you will recall this if y'all were with us on our Traveling with Jesus study on Sunday nights. You may have remembered this segment. Stacey, were you there for that lesson?
Yes.
You're the one that's with us, yeah. So these are the words of Jesus here. An interesting passage. He says, for there are some eunuchs. Now, a eunuch was a man who served in the king's palace, and he was often castrated, especially if he was working in the chambers for the women. Obviously, there's a reason why they would be worried about it, so they'd want to, make them eunuchs, which were born so from their mother's womb. Now, there are some who are just born physically. There's something wrong, okay? It's one of the amazing things to me about how, those trying to push, progressive ideology, well, there's always been people who are kind of in between gender and whatnot. It's well, the Bible knows about these things, and they address this matter even here, that there's some men that there's something physically wrong with them, okay? In their physiology, they cannot have children. They're eunuchs, born so. There are some eunuchs which are made eunuchs of men. Now, just because you read a eunuch doesn't always mean that they were necessarily, because either they could be made eunuchs by men, or there's this other option, and I really do take this to not be that they castrated themselves, but rather they chose to be functionally eunuchs in their life as they live. And then, so it says, which have made themselves eunuchs, and then look at what he adds here, for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. Sounds like it's not for everyone. It's only for those who can receive it. Is it possible, when we go back over here to Revelation, we are addressing maybe those that could receive it were the 144,000. They were called to not be defiled with women, to remain virgins, to be functionally, effectively eunuchs in their life. Maybe so. Once again, a little bit of speculation there, but we always try to do our due diligence to study. It also describes a little bit further. These are they which followed the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. Now, it's not like Christ was on the earth during the tribulation, so they weren't able to really follow him there. I think it's more so, hey, now that Christ is there, the 144,000, wherever he goes, they're with him. Okay, I think that's what it's saying. And these were redeemed from among men, being the firstfruits unto God and to the Lamb. Now, they're described as the firstfruits. I think that means these are the first to enter the kingdom. Okay, the 144,000 will be the first. You will have those who were maybe even were able to survive the tribulation. It's kind of hard to imagine, but maybe you got people hiding out in the woods somewhere and they're able to make it through. You also have the martyrs. They will be resurrected. I think the Old Testament saints will be resurrected. Now, maybe you could argue they're the ones that come back with Christ in Revelation 19. There's arguments to be made there, but I think as far as the first fruits of those who get to enter into the kingdom, it's this 144,000 redeemed from the earth. And it also describes them in verse 5, in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of God. They were obedient perfectly the whole time, keeping the commandments of God. Now, we get into verse 6, and this will be nearly our last section here. It is going to be the everlasting gospel. So there is this gospel that is going to be preached. Now, we have to speculate a little bit. What is the order of things here? Are we jumping back again? Is this in the moment? I'm going to lean towards this kind of as a jump a little bit back, possibly. But I'm also not going to tell you I think it's for certain. Go study on your own time and let me know what you think, okay? But we're going to look at this matter of the everlasting gospel. Verse 6, "And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth." Now it's interesting there, everlasting, forever, euangelion, good news, the word gospel there, to preach to them that dwell on the earth. And it's not just for the 144,000. This is for all, to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, for all people to hear. I think this is what's in the tribulation. Now, is this right towards the end here? I'm leaning towards it being a little bit before. These are just things that are going on for the course of the tribulation. But if you do read it this way, it is possible that maybe even at the very end of the tribulation, when Christ has returned and He's about to judge the world, there is this one last proclamation to receive the gospel, one more opportunity. It's kind of hard to maybe make that case, but it's interesting to speculate there.
Do you think that's an option for even the people that have taken the mark of the beast?
That's where it's hard for me to say yes, absolutely, but it's also hard for me to say entirely no. The typical tradition is, I think most preachers would say, when you take the mark of the beast, your fate is sealed. And then, but my question is, who is this left for? If there is nobody, I mean, if you maybe have, by this point, the people are already that haven't taken the mark, they've either been killed, or maybe they're hiding out, or maybe they're the 144,000. I think they pretty much already understand the idea of what this gospel is going to be, fear God and give glory to Him.
It sounds like another grace gospel.
Well, I think there's grace in every gospel, I will say. We'll look at it, what it says here in just a minute, and we'll try to speculate a little bit further. But this is what he sees. Maybe this is towards the very end. This is one final call. Maybe the people who are on the earth are getting one last chance to receive this. But the angel flies in the midst of heaven, and this is what he says, this everlasting gospel, a gospel that sounds like it'll never end. It'll go on forever, right? There's no cease to it. Saying with a loud voice, "Fear God and give glory to Him." Worship God. Okay, worship the Lord. One thing I would say is a little bit distinct from our gospel. You're not really saved by worshiping God. I know it's a weird thing to say, right? But the act of worshiping God, giving glory to Him, is not really the means by which we're saved. It's what we should do. And I think once you understand who God is, it's a natural product. But we're saved by believing the shed blood of Christ and His resurrection is the remission of sins, right? So it is a slight difference here. Fear God, give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment is come, and worship Him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. It does sound like this is towards the very end here, that the judgment has come. Here it is. This is your chance. You better fear God now because He's going to judge you. And could we even say, because this is the everlasting gospel, it's really the last gospel preached? Like this is the last call, it's the last bit of good news to fear God, give glory to Him, for the day of judgment has come. And so there's that picture here of this. Now in verse 8, very interesting here, it says, "And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication." Now the city of Babylon is mentioned in Revelation 17 and Revelation 18. We're not going to go there just yet. We'll be there shortly in a few weeks. The Babylon is represented by a woman, okay? Revelation calls her the great whore that sitteth upon the beast. And she is, I believe, a future day in which Babylon is rebuilt. There's some who spiritualize it. They speculate, well, just how they speculate the mark of the beast, credit cards, the mark of the beast, a vaccine, whatever. They will say, well, Babylon represents Rome, Babylon represents Catholicism, Babylon represents the United States, it's the United Nations. They'll do all these things. I'm just going to say, I'm going to let Babylon be Babylon. Could the city be rebuilt hypothetically one day? I think so. But this is the call. Now what's interesting is in Revelation 17 and 18, you're getting to the end of the tribulation. I mean, you're almost, Revelation 19 is the triumphant return, if you recall. So it sounds to me like this is all happening towards the very end. So there is one last call for the everlasting gospel. It's hard for me to picture, but there it is. and the fall of Babylon. We're going to see how the city will fall. All the kings, the rich people, the nations will gather there. They will commit great wickedness, sinfulness, worshiping the beast, I'm sure all sorts of other wickedness. And the wrath will be poured out on the city. And then we get to judgment for the sealed of the beast. And this will actually go quite quick because it's all pretty much straightforward. And the third angel followed them. So there were 3 angels. A third angel follows, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image and receive his mark in his head, or receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. That does kind of work against the idea that maybe if you take the mark, you could get out of it. Also, well, what if you cut your hand off? I mean, it's... There'll be some preachers here be saying, what is he talking about? I'm just saying we're speculating a little bit. It's okay. I think that there's too much ditches that you're supposed to stay between, and sometimes I like to hop on a dirt bike and I like to jump the ditch and go other places, right? So let's just, we can theorize a little bit. If I can work in dirt bikes, I will somehow. So they will drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. So they will be judged. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever. Once again, those who hold to somehow a universalist idea or an annihilationist idea that eventually everybody will be saved or you will cease to exist at some point. Doesn't sound like it. It sounds like you'll be tormented forever and ever if you take the mark of the beast, if you never receive the gospel, whether it's ours or the everlasting gospel. And they have no rest day or night who worship the beast in his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Some may say that sounds awfully harsh. I would say you have rejected your actual Creator and worshipped a false god. You have bowed down to Him, called Him Lord. At that point, you really have no excuse. You get what you righteously deserve. And then verse 12 says, here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. So it's paralleling, it's contrasting here. There are those who took the mark of the beast. They will receive everlasting torment, right? So you trade your eternal punishment for life here and now, right? You don't want to be judged forever, you don't want to starve, so you choose to be judged forever. As opposed to, here are the saints, those that keep the commandments of God. Verse 13, and I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Right, blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. Yea, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. So those who die in the Lord. Are you going to love your life to the death or not? Just as Jesus said, he that loves his life shall lose it. If you love it so much that you would rather take the mark than lose your life, you will lose your life in the end. You will receive eternal punishment. If you do not love your life unto the death, if you're willing to give up your life, he that loses his life shall find it. Once again, I think these make much more sense when we read it in the terms of the tribulation rather than trying to read it into our gospel today. It really becomes problematic in a lot of ways. So judgment is going to be poured out upon the people. And then we'll get into the matter of the wine press and the judgment towards the end of the chapter. But that brings us to a close for session number 29, and we ended with the judgment for the sealed of the beast. We covered a lot there, but we're trying to take larger chunks as we move through. Do y'all have any comments, questions?
I have kind of a random but not completely random question.
Yes.
So, and I don't know that this is technically a biblical thing. It is, but anyway. So, like, is there an age of accountability, and would that carry on into even after the rapture? So, like, if a baby is born, say, after Christ comes back and takes
Yes.
Christians, is there still that age of accountability?
I think so. I think that there is, because even like when David's son, his first son with Bathsheba, perished, David said, "He will not return to me, but I will go to him." And that's not in our grace dispensation. That was men. That was people under the law. So I think that there are some baseline things that are always true. Just as a child doesn't have the cognitive ability to receive the grace gospel, neither does the child have the ability to receive what God is offering in the future unto a certain point. Now, truth be told, there's some preachers who, I would personally say whatever that age is kind of different for some, right? I know some preachers and some that I would say are good theologians argue for a much later age of accountability than we're talking 18 years old, if not older. It's kind of an interesting argument to make there, but I would agree, though, yes, I think there's an age of accountability.
I didn't know if there was like a term for it.
That's
But
mostly what
the
it's called.
Kids that their parents made them take the mark of the beast.
Right.
When they were a little bitty.
Yeah, did you choose to take the mark? I think that's a key thing there. Yeah, I mean, I think that, for example, like you have a trying to think of a good example. I don't know whatever if Islam has some kind of ritual for a newborn child. Probably do. Most religions do to some degree. Did that child consent to engaging in that? Will the Muslim child go to hell because he died when he was too young and because he had already been gone through whatever commencement ceremony that they have? I think the same would apply. Speculation there, but I think when I look at the nature and character of God, I think we can make that case. All right. Well, thank y'all for joining me. Hope you like being back in the old room, just like old times. Brings back to the day that we first visited and Brother Norman was in here leading the Sunday school lesson. Well, let me close out a word of prayer because we got to get going. Lord, we thank you for the time we've had to look at this passage, these verses of Revelation, Lord. While there's much debate and different positions on it, I really do think that taking it literally, taking it plainly, is going to be the most consistent approach. It allows for the age of grace that we live in to not be contradicted by the call for Israel to go through the tribulation. And Lord, I just pray that we can communicate the gospel effectively so as many people can receive it as possible so that they can avoid these days that will come, that I'm fully persuaded will come. With that, we thank you for our gospel. It's in Christ's name I pray. Amen. Thank you all.